So as we said today, we'll talk about the black box testing, which is part of dynamic testing. It's under the dynamic testing techniques. So today we'll cover this topic, which is the test cases. What's the test cases, and then the different type of black box test or testing. We have here equivalence partitions, we have boundary value, we have combinatorial testing and decision table. So by the end, you should know these things, which is the test cases, what is the test cases, also the different techniques in black box testing, and also how to apply these techniques. Okay, so let's go first for the test cases. So what are the test cases? As you see here, is include a description of the input value, execution preconditions, result, and post conditions. Test cases is the description of these points, which is the input value, for example, and then the preconditions. The most important is the input value, description of the input value and the result. So, for example, if we have a simple program, and this program accepts x as the input, and the input and x is integer, let's say is integer, and the value of these variables take, for example, from 0 to 10. Okay, from 0 to 10. So the test cases is any number from 0 to 10. The test cases is any number. It can be like array, but it's okay. Let's say only it's any number from 0 to 10. So if we take, for example, 9, it's test cases. So we can test our application using this number. So the test cases, as we say, is the input value. So also sometimes we need to talk about also to include in the test case the result as well. The result, if I input 9, so what the result? Expected result. At least we say, okay, it will calculate. If we don't know exactly the result, we can say is calculate, for example, the sum. If the output of this application is to calculate the sum. So we need also some time to include the preconditions. So what's preconditions? For example, maybe precondition is not clear here. Precondition, let's say you have login modules and the user want to log in. So when you have here, you have the username and you have the password. So as the test data, at the test, the input value should be the name, right? Or the account or whatever. For example, what should use here use, for example, username. So we say it's the input is the username and password. Okay, this is the input. So what the precondition here, we can also say the user should have account. The user have account. So this is the precondition. So the precondition actually is something should be provided or available before the process. And the post condition, for example, show the result, show these things, the post conditioning. So this is the test cases. So the test cases actually it's the input of your application, the input of your application. So if you see here, as we say, input can be the value itself, which is also it's called sometimes is the data, also the precondition, the expected result, and post condition. So when we talk about the test cases, we should say that the test cases should have high priority or high chance to detect the error, to find the error. So that's why we have different type of methods. And then sometimes we apply all, sometimes we apply the best one. Okay, so your test cases should high priority to catch the defects. Also should be unique. Should be unique. There's no point if you execute the same test cases 2 times or 3 times. For example, in the previous example, if we say, okay, I have the first test cases, for example, it's 9. The second test case also it's 9. I execute this and execute this. So better to be is unique and should not be too simple, or also is not too complicated. when you select your application. Also, we will see this point, but should be it's good enough. Good enough. Also, is the best for in its type. Here, actually, for example, if you test your application with 9, so of course you are interested to test the application with something is harder. Something is harder. So also the second things also, if you test your application, for example, with one methods, and you know that there is another method is more complicated than these methods. So if your method, your application is past the first method, so also you are interested to test your application with the harder one. You will see this is in the next slide. So here also is related to the last one, which is what we say. It's you always want to, okay, in general, as you know, the goal of the application of testing is to detect the errors, detect the defects. So what you should to do? Okay, here they say the order of the test cases, the order of the test case. So you test your application with simple methods, and your application is pass. So the first method, for example, we can say is just test to pass, and then test to pass does mean you don't have, for example, to key in something it's wrong. You just, okay, my application is accept the number from 0 to 10. So I give, for example, only 5, and then it's pass, so pass. You can go to the next stage, which is destructive approach. Remember last time I talked about it, which is I key in something wrong. I key in something, for example, here the number I should not key in or input minus. So I will input minus. If it's pass, so go to the next, which is more harder, which is exhaustive testing. Exhaustive testing, as you know, exhaustive testing, it's for simple application, like for example, this, it's easy, okay. But if you have complicated or big application or system, it will be hard, if not impossible. So at the next stage, you can use the exhaustive testing. That means every time you test yours with the best one, or the best to detect the error or the defect.